Hello, and welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way with God at the center from a Judeo-Christian worldview and real-world first-hand experience. As always, I'm your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I don't apologize for it. God is preeminent in my life and everything that I do, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background before we roll into the topic. I started hunting and shooting and even competition shooting before I joined the Marine Corps at age 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq, where by God's grace He got me back safely. After that, I was an urban warfare instructor for the U.S. Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've also been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area where our primary job was to stop active shooters. I've been blessed to be a professional big game hunter and guide. I've hunted and guided, professionally or just to put meat on the table. I've been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, everything from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and hunted and guided for, elk and bison, exotic animals. I've slain wolf and bear and all manner of beasts, and I don't apologize for that either. Been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember with the talents that God gave me and the abilities that God gave me. State rifle and pistol champion a few times over. FBI certified firearms instructor, NRA certified, and a couple of other high-level certifications. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Enough about me, guys. Let's get into today's topic. The last episode, if you listen, was the wife's next carry gun. Well, this episode, we're going to talk about perhaps my next carry gun. Now, I haven't bought a firearm in quite a while, but God has blessed me with a new job, a very good job. I'm very blessed to have it. I'm very thankful for it. I've been toying around even before this job with red dots. For a long time, I was against them. I was kind of a troglodyte, probably for a decade, against them on any kind of fighting gun. I considered them more of a toy for competition, for things like that. But I thought for a serious, a fighting man's handgun, for a fighting man's implement, the red dot sights. I know they're not all red dots. There's some green dots. There's triangles. There's all kinds of things. But just know that I'm going to refer to them as red dot sights. Your all different flavors of mounted optical sights on a handgun, I thought was never going to be a thing. And I was wrong. And I don't know why I had that opinion. I guess I just got stuck in my ways and didn't want to change. I guess I didn't want to believe that they would ever beat out iron sights, because I love shooting with iron sights. But, hearkening back to my first tour in Iraq, I, used a rifle with iron sights, an old M16A2. Now, my second tour, I upgraded to the A4 with a ACOG, and the ACOG was fine. And, when I mentioned I was a private contractor for a three-letter government agency, we ran aim points, red dot sights, and those things were fine. I never had a problem with them coming out of zero or breaking or anything like that. I saw more M16s, AR-15s break than I saw those optics break. Literally, mine had a catastrophic malfunction. One of the guys I served with had a catastrophic malfunction. His barrel literally bent. It was out of spec, like you couldn't even get a cleaning rod down it. I've had catastrophic failures, but my first tour during the war, I had a catastrophic failure, meaning that it wasn't a malfunction that could be fixed in the field by a user. It had to go to an armorer. And then I've seen some pretty gross malfunctions after that. I've seen, like I said, more of those break than I have seen the optics break. Not that I've never seen one break, but that, I guess what I'm saying is that don't ever be so tied to your ways that you let it get in the view of reality. Like, those sites have come a long way. Recently, right before I started this job, back when I was still the leader of a tactical team, I went to training that I had been going through the same company for years, and one of the head guys there was running an optic, and I was like, whoa, you're running an optic? We got to talking about it, and he made some really good points, and I respect his decision. He's a good trainer. And my thing was always, if you drop them, they'll break. And if you drop them, they still may break. But I don't know why I never thought that I've seen plenty of iron sights broken. If you drop a gun on its front blade iron sight, it breaks, and then you can't use it. So it really wasn't a valid argument. And they've come so far and become so sturdy and not ridiculously large that they are conceivable on a fighting handgun. So I'm coming around to that. Like I said, I don't want to ever be so stuck in my ways that it holds me back. Everybody thinks of Wyatt Earp as going around with a Colt Peacemaker. I don't know if that's the exact model he used, but you picture him with an old cowboy single-action gun. But he was a gunfighter of his day. If he were around today, I doubt he'd be using a Colt single-action Army. He would be using an AR-15 or a Benelli M4 shotgun. As I understand, Wyatt Earp was quite a big fan of the shotgun, as am I. But he wouldn't be using a double-barrel coach gun. He'd be using a Benelli M4 or something like it. And if he was going to have a handgun, he'd probably look for the best that was available if he was going to trust his life to it. He wouldn't be going around with old, antiquated technology. And I don't think that... Well, here's the issue that I have with optical sights is a lot of shooters that aren't very good think if they throw a next piece of kit on their handgun, it's going to make them a great shooter, and it doesn't work like that. But I have been experimenting, like I said, for several months. I did what I would recommend you guys do if you're switching. I do a lot of my training with a 22 in a similar configuration and setup to my fighting handguns. And I put one on a 22 of Burris Fast Fire, I believe Fast Fire 2, and I ran it, and I have to concede that it was better. It's not more accurate, but I have to do less work to be as accurate, if that makes sense. And if you've done any practice with it, you'll know what I mean. There's less to do to become as accurate with it. Also, I have a few standards. My first standard generally is 12 in a row on what I call my head plate. It's a head size steel plate at 50 yards. I like to get 12 in a row, and I won't let myself move anything else beyond that if I don't have a good, firm mastery of the fundamentals. And if I'm at a range that's only 25 yards, as where I work now, then I will put up the NRA, slow fire 25 yard, which is about half the size, which makes sense. And I do the same standard. But one of my other standards is 3 in a draw, fire 3 in a row at 25 yards on the head plate in 7 seconds. And that's a standard. If I get that in 4 seconds, that's like a really good day for me before with iron sights. The first day I mounted and really started doing that standard with a red dot sight, I got it in 2 point something. From 4 something on a really good day to 2 point something. I forget what is 2 point something. But that showed me right there that was an advantage. And I recently went and mounted a optical sight, not a red dot sight at all. It's not even electronic, but it's the Trijicon that's tritium and fiber optic, kind of like I have on my Scar 17, but the pistol version, which means that it takes no batteries, no electricity. It runs off fiber optic cable, and it runs off tritium, which is radioactive. So in theory, it should pretty much run as long as I need it to run without batteries, without it getting cold and the batteries busting and freezing, or any electrodes coming undone or anything like that. And I put that on one of my STIs. And the first day I ran it, I shot a group that I would have been fantastically happy to shoot with iron sights on a good day with a gun that I was well trained on. And I did that the first day that I had that mounted at 25 yards. It was a ridiculously good group. Like I said, not that I couldn't shoot it with iron sights, but if I had, I'd been super, super happy. And I did that the very first time with the optic. So, all that being said, I think I will be making the switch to, an optical sight on my go-to fighting handguns. Whether that's what I consider my gun that I carry on my hip when I'm hiking, when I'm working, when I'm doing any of those things, a full-size handgun, and a carry gun. So, what got me thinking about this episode was I did one about my wife's next carry gun. And I'm going to do this one kind of on my next carry gun. So I've been looking at a few. If you listen to the Glock episode, you know that I can see that Glocks work. And one of my concealed carry guns is a Glock. But they're not my favorite. I was looking at the Glock 48 to mount a red dot on because they come with that option. The thing of it is, if I go that route, I'm going to have to probably, not have to, but it would behoove me to trim that frame up, which means I pretty much have to destroy the gun as far as resale or anything goes, stipple it, and rework the the frame just so that it has a similar grip angle to a 1911, which is the grip angle that I have trained a bunch with and I'm used to, and what will probably be and remain to be on my fighting handguns, my full-size handgun, and I want continuity of training. So if I did get the Glock 48, which is a slimmer single stack, Glock that I can mount a dot on, I would have to rework the entire frame, which I would probably pay somebody to do because they would probably do a better job than me. I don't know if I want to do that. So that one's a maybe. The SIG 365 XL I've been looking at, I've been playing with, I've been dry firing with them. I just don't know that I trust old SIGs, the 229s, the 226s, the 239s, what I would consider their older technology. I really trust those. They're really proven. But a lot of the newer SIGs, the polymer striker fire ones, I think their quality control has kind of slipped. So I don't know that I would trust my life to a SIG 365 or 365 XL. If you do, that's fine. I'd say run it. We have two here for use for people that want to train with them and practice with them, and one of them broke, and they're not that old. So I don't know that I would trust my life to it. I don't know that I wouldn't. I guess it's still a maybe for that one as well. It does have a similar grip angle, but I think the triggers are kind of, I don't know, like dragging a piano down a dirt road. So that one's a maybe. I've also been looking at the Beretta APX1 carry. Now, Berettas I trust. Like I said, during my tours in Iraq, I had my M16 have a catastrophic failure. I've never had my Beretta give me any problems. Never had any of my Berettas give me any problems. So I would trust the Beretta APX1 carry, assuming that it's been out for a decent amount of time and nobody's reported any issues with it before I adopt it. But I'm looking at that one. The only issue with that one is that I haven't actually handled it in person. I don't know that it fits, meaning that if the front sight is in line all the way to my wrist, to my shoulder, all the way back in a straight line, that I can squarely put my finger on the trigger and it naturally aligns. That's important for me. So I haven't been able to play with one of those. So that one's a maybe for that reason. My other option is to go old school, since I'm accustomed to running like STIs, which are double stack 1911 on my full size, what I would consider fighting handgun, combat handgun, is to go with going old school and getting, a lightweight commander size 1911 and either getting it milled out, because I don't know anybody that makes a lightweight commander yet that's milled out for an optical sight. So I'd either have to get it machined, which I can't do myself. I'd have to send it off, which means it would be probably as much as buying another gun to get that all set up and worked out when all was said and done. I believe when I looked into it, it was about $350, which is getting close to the price of, a Glock, a blue label Glock, just to get the work done, not counting the gun that I have to buy to start with. But if that's the best option, I might go with it, or to get a Novak adapter, which is what I have on my STI right now, a Novak adapter to mount a red dot sight on it. But that might make it too big that I'm probably not going to carry it. So that's the quandary that I'm in, talking about my next carry gun. And I love shooting. I love all manner of things that go with the martial discipline of being a good shooter, but I'm not the biggest gun nerd. There may be a few guns out there that I don't know of. Some will say the Springfield Hellcat. I have a saying, friends don't let friends buy Springfields. I have never seen, I'd hate to say this because they make some cool products, but I've never seen a Springfield make it through, like I said, my last job when we were, a gunfighting team. I'd never seen anybody go through and complete the training with a Springfield, either rifle or handgun, that didn't break. When I was a police officer, when those things came out, I can't recall anybody ever adopting one and it not breaking. So if you want one for a fun gun, a range toy, that's fine, but for an actual go-to fighting gun that I would trust my life to, the Springfields are kind of out. And it kind of sucks because they do make some good designs. I just don't know that I would trust their quality. But perhaps there is a gun out there that I'm not even aware of that would fit the bill. But just letting you guys know that, I guess some of the big takeaways are, don't be a troglodyte. If something really is better, concede that it's better, even if you don't want it to be true, especially if you don't want it to be true. I love shooting pistols with iron sights. I really like the discipline of it. I don't plan on stopping practicing with that and being good with that, but not adopting better technology, especially in something like gunfighting where it's mano a mano, seems foolish. And I hope that the big takeaway is, don't ever be so stuck in your ways you're not willing to adapt something that's better just because you're stuck in your ways when there's no good reason for it. With that, guys, I guess I'll wrap up this episode of Gunfighter Life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some things to think about. I don't know that adopting a red dot is right or not for you. I'd say the only advice I could give is do what I did and put it on a training handgun, a 22 or something similar, and run it and see what you think. I do believe it does require quite a bit of more and different training and adaptation, so I don't think you're just going to throw it on and automatically be awesome. It still takes discipline and training. But with that, guys, I appreciate you listening to this episode of Gunfighter Life. I appreciate everybody who supports this podcast and any of the other ones. If you like this podcast, you may also like the Alpha Male podcast. The podcast we talk about being a man in this crazy, somewhat alien world we've built for ourselves in modern society. If you care about the important stuff, you may also like Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Tactical tip here. It's not really even a tactical tip, it's just a reminder. Loctite. If you're going to mount any kind of optic, whether it's a scope on a rifle with mounts or a red dot on a pistol or anything like that, blue Loctite, not red Loctite. That's a good tactical tip. I've made that mistake before. Blue Loctite on all the screws, especially if it's for a fighting gun. If it's something you're just going to put on and experiment with and maybe take off, that's fine. But if you're going to have it there and you want it to stay there, put blue Loctite on it. Don't be stingy with the blue Loctite. Put the blue Loctite on the screws, and then when you get them where you want them, a good tip is to take a pencil or one of the silver Sharpies and mark the position. So if they move, then you'll know. If you do that and it prevents one optic from coming loose during a training class, or hopefully you never have this happen during an encounter, well worth this episode. So if you like this episode and you want to support, don't forget to go to goodshepherdtraining.com. You can scroll down. That's the umbrella that houses the other podcasts I talked about as well. Patreon link is on there for the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo or a thing of, a little squeeze bottle of blue Loctite. For the fraction of that cost, you can support this podcast and the other ones. We recently hit a landmark in that we've been doing these podcasts for years, and we have to upload them to a server so that we can put them on the internet for you guys to listen to. And we recently reached our limit. And if it wasn't for the generous support of people that listen, I probably would have just went back and deleted older episodes, meaning they would have just been gone. But since people do support, I just went ahead and upgraded, and cost a little bit more money, but I went ahead and upgraded and got more space on the provider so that we could continue to keep those old episodes if you wanted to go back and listen to them. Or if somebody just discovers this and want to go back and listen about the 35 Remington or some older episode, it'll still be there. And that's a direct reflection of the appreciation and where the money goes. So if you want to support, like I said, go to goodshepherdtraining.com, scroll down to the bottom, consider supporting for as little as $1 a month. It'd be appreciated. If not, don't feel guilty about it. My God supplies all my needs. I'm not worried. He always does. I guess that's it. I'll start signing off as my puppy comes here to get some belly scratches. And I'll say thanks for listening, guys, and have a blessed day.